Hello Patreon, and welcome to July's video for all paid members. I think this is going to go out, so whether you're on the yellow tier, the cyan tier or the magenta tier, hello, because this video is giving you some inspiration and encouragement. I hope you're going to take part in our community upcycling challenge, which I'll explain a bit more about at the end of this video, and there'll be posts about that in the forum as well. And I'd really love people to take part in that. It's not just for July, because I know this summer can be a busy time for people, so I'll explain what the details are as we go through. But what I wanted to do was show you some of the things that I have made recently or in the last few years, reusing and repurposing old textiles. Now, you might think, yeah, that's all very well, Rose, but I'm not the sort of person that has a pile of old textiles lying around. I mean, I totally am that person. I have an entire sewing room full of old textiles lying around. Some of those are new textiles, but quite a lot of them are old textiles. So one of the things I just wanted to do as well is talk about good ways of thinking that will help you to see that actually you may have quite a lot more old textiles that are good for reusing and recycling and repurposing than you think. So if you think about your house, it is full of textiles. In your bedroom, there will be bed linen, duvet cover, pillowcases, maybe blankets, curtains. There will be clothes probably in your bedroom or wherever you keep them. Many of those will be pristine new, and you certainly don't want to cut those up and use them. But at some point, they will wear out. And you think, well, what do I do with those? Well, if they're still usable, they're not really worn out, you just don't wear them anymore, then of course take them to the charity shop. Or if you're a sewer, you might upcycle them into a different garment. But often the reason you don't wear them anymore, certainly if you're me, is because they've got holes in them or they're stained. You know, they're not going to be usable by a charity shop. So they can go still in the recycling bin at the tip, but also before you immediately think about that, just have a look at them and think, is this something that I might want to use in future? Could I cut, for example, a square out of the back of a shirt that would make a really nice backing for a pillow, for a cross-stitch pillow? Is there a zip on this that I could use for something? Or are there buttons? Definitely start your own button jar. I feel like, I think I said that in the post that I did about reusing and recycling. But absolutely, if you've got an item of clothing that's not wearable, obviously don't take off buttons to a shirt that you're taking to a charity shop that someone else might want to buy and wear, but they're going to need the buttons. But if it's not that level, take the buttons off and put them in your button jar. So, okay, so bedding, clothing, in the bathroom, you probably got some towels, face cloths, maybe you've got bath mat, shower curtain. So shower curtains are interesting. If you've got the kind that is effectively some kind of plastic, they're really great if you ever think, oh, what I'd like to do is make a little wash bag or a pouch that's waterproof. Well, there you've got some waterproof fabric. Mine is the kind where it's got a plastic lining, but it's also got a fabric outer cover. It's very beautiful. You know, as and when I get to the point where I need to replace that, I'm definitely keeping maybe all of it, but certainly some of it. Don't be afraid to just cut up usable amounts. You think, well, I'll just cut a fat quarter's worth, or I'll just cut this strip here or whatever, and put that in your useful fabric pile. In your sitting room, there'll be cushion covers, maybe curtains, maybe you've got, I don't know if you're of the generation or taste that still has little lace doilies around the place. I mean, that might just be my mother. But, you know, one of those, once it's got a wine stain on it or a coffee stain on it, don't throw it away. You've got some really pretty lace there that you might use for edging something or making something out of. In the kitchen, you might have napkins, tea towels. Tea towels are brilliant for all kinds of things. They're just a really nice fabric, obviously depending on the kind of tea towel you have, but like the old-fashioned ones with just kind of stripes or checks on them, really nice neutral fabrics often that are really great for using. And, you know, those are exactly the kind of thing that, you know, tea towels don't last forever, do they? You know, and often you can salvage quite a good chunk of it, even if there's a bit that's really manky. Now, some of the things I'm going to show you that I've done, I wouldn't even mind if it had stains or holes in it. But for quite a lot of things, you might think, no, I do need it to at least start off with a pretty good usable piece of fabric. It's fine. So, you know, people will have different levels of willingness to engage with old textiles, and that is completely fine. But whatever level you're at, you have an ongoing source of them just from your ordinary household life. Now, in addition to that, obviously you can go to charity shops and see, you know, often charity shops don't have garments my size because I'm quite fat, and fat girls' clothes tend to be not very well made, and if they are, they just get worn and worn and worn. So it's rare that I find a garment in the charity shop, occasionally. But I still look around because they're a really great source of fabric. I'm just working on a project at the moment that hopefully I'll get the instructions for that out later today, which all came from a charity shop because I was stuck in Scotland on my holiday, hadn't really brought all the things that I needed with me, no craft shops for about 3 hours. What is there? There's charity shops, and sometimes you find craft materials, and I did find an enormous piece of Ada in one of the charity shops, which was brilliant. But mostly what I was buying were pre-made items. I bought a Cath Kidston double duvet and pillowcase set for £5. I bought a little baby dress for £1. You know, and they're really great sources of really interesting, beautiful fabric, really cheaply. And, you know, depending what you're using them for, it really isn't, you know, it's not any worse quality fabric than if you bought it new. And often it's even better in some ways. So I was very excited by the Cath Kidston purchase because 4 or 5 years ago, before pandemic, so at least 5 years ago, I think, I bought 3 Cath Kidston pillowcases. These are just the Cath Kidston for IKEA ones. So they're really old. They're really distinctive. And I bought those pillowcases for 50p each. And I made, well, when I was making masks, all of the masks I made were lined with fabric from those pillowcases because it was so soft, because it had been well used. It was just really nice against the skin. I didn't love wearing masks. I mean, I don't think anyone loved it, but, you know, I didn't really like the sensation of it. But with that soft fabric, it was so much nicer. And, you know, there are lots of things where actually it's nicer to have really worn, used, soft to the touch fabric than crisp new fabric. So yeah, don't sort of look down on used fabric as being lesser. It's different, and you might want to think carefully about what you're using it for. So if you've got something that is really worn and fine and soft, you probably don't want to use it for something that's going to get a lot of wear and tear. So a garment, for example, although I've used that fabric for lining a lot of garments as well. And it's worn really, really well. So let me show you some of the things. Oh, the other source, by the way, is if you let other people know that you are interested in fabric. And, you know, I have a friend who quite regularly gets clothes altered to fit her better. So they'll be taking up sleeves or hemming things. And she just saves me all the bits from that. And, you know, she's like, if there's any that you don't want, that's absolutely fine, just get rid of them. But sometimes she's, you know, there's the most beautiful fabric there. And one of the fabrics I'm going to show you in one of my examples was from a different friend, actually, who is decluttering. And she sent me 3 pieces of fabric. There was a sort of long yardage quantity of unused cotton lawn that I made a summer blouse out of. And then there were 2 that were from upholstery or curtain fabric, one of which I've not yet used, but one I'll show you. It was the one when she said to me, I was like, I don't know what on earth I would use it for, but I found the perfect use. I will warn you, I don't really have any good tips of how you then stop your house becoming entirely full of fabric. You do have to be a bit ruthless. Moving often it's quite good. I used to have a rule when I was moving that if the bit of fabric was less than about this big, then it wasn't allowed to come with me. Okay, so I'm going to start with this, something I made ages ago. So this is just a notebook, plain notebook from Muji. I made this actually. I'll just show you what it is. It was my washi tape sampler notebook when I, at the point where I was trying to curate my vast washi tape collection. But anyway, I personalised it by doing some machine stitching on the front, and I stitched 2 pieces, these little scraps of Liberty Tana lawn, but you could use any sort of lightweight fabric for this. Shirt, cotton would be great. Bedding, linen probably would work fine. And I was just sort of playing with my machine, and I think it says, yeah, I think it does just about say Rosalind. I don't know if you can read that. I'm not great at that sort of free motion embroidery. But anyway, I did several of these. I don't think I did more with the flower. I can't remember. But just taking little scraps of fabric, stitching them on, and sending them to friends as personalised gifts. You can see you do not need a big scrap of fabric like that. So if you've got something with a really pretty design on it, that's one way to do it. I wouldn't hand stitch onto cardboard. It's quite hard work. But you could certainly glue on fabric onto cardboard if you didn't have a machine. So that, similarly, because, you know, books are my thing. This is a sketchbook. There you go. You can see it's very lovely watercolour paper. In fact, that's upside down. Now this, I did make this on a workshop, this cover. I'm just going to take the book out and show you the cover. And this was super fun to make. It started with the most unpromising collection of fabrics in dirgy greys and browns and not my colour. But it uses scraps from old garments, I think almost exclusively. And old garments unpicked have really beautiful textures and shapes in them. And then we painted the fabric, and that makes the fabric have a very different quality to it. It's much sturdier. You don't have to worry about fraying nearly so much. So that's what we did. We sort of took the scraps of fabric and we painted them. And then the next day we took a backing piece, which I can't remember whether it was interfacing or whether we just did it. This was a lining fabric, so this wasn't the backing fabric. I think there was something, I think it was a piece of interfacing. And then we just stitched, again, using machine stitch, but you could do it by hand. You could certainly get away with just gluing this because of the fraying issue. And then I went into it with a Sharpie and a Posca pen and so on. And one of the things I used was a little bit of sari ribbon, which gives it this. But you end up with really quite a sturdy kind of thing. And this would make quite a nice purse or bag, or, you know, all kinds of things. You can make little storage boxes out of it, you know, and it's going to stand up nice and firm. So painting into the fabric. So you see why something like this, it really doesn't matter if your fabric is a bit stained or a bit holy, because you can paint over it and you can cut around it and you can do whatever. But some of the places, like here, this was a gingham shirt. I painted over in yellow, but the gingham still comes through, which is quite fun. But if you didn't want that, you could just paint an extra layer and get it completely solid. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else you can see. Yeah, there's a little bit here. I don't know if you can see that had a little sort of floral print underneath. So you do still get some of the sort of original fabric coming through, and it's up to you. Obviously, if you have fabrics where you love the colours, you could just paint maybe from the back and just paint more lightly to get enough of the texture. But you do need to get this sort of effect. You do need enough paint on the fabric. Acrylic paint or emulsion is what you want to use. And, you know, little cheap craft acrylics, absolutely fine. They don't have to be posh, expensive, artist quality acrylics. And, you know, if you've got emulsion paint in one colour, you can always add little bits of acrylic paint to eke it out in different colours. You do not have to do yours in Birds of Paradise colours, but obviously I'm going to. So, and again, you can see really little scraps of fabric. I wanted to do mine with these sort of curves as the dominant thing, because one of the things I unpicked was a neckline, and it had this most beautiful curved shape. So that's where my shapes came from. What else? Okay, more traditional use of leftover fabrics. This is a quilt top. I'm not going to try and show you the whole thing. I'm very proud of myself though, because I have finished this quilt top and I have pieced the backing for it. I therefore now need to quilt it. But I want to show you, some of these were new fabrics. Some of these were not. So this piece is the Cath Kidston pillowcase I was telling you about. This was a piece of new quilt cotton. So was this. This was leftover from a dress that I had made. This fabric, so I bought this years ago in a sort of junk shop as vintage fabric. So I've no idea how old it is. It looks sort of maybe 1970s-ish to me. And I made a top from it and saved the scraps from that. And then I stopped wearing the top, and so I saved that. So I don't actually know how used that bit of fabric is, but certainly not new. What else have I got in here that I have used? This spotty one. A lot of these, I guess, are leftovers rather than reused, but a bit more of that Liberty print that I showed you. This swimmer's fabric, I had loads of that. I made a top and a dress out of that, and that was the leftovers there. So, I mean, patching things together, obviously classic way of using up scraps and reusing old fabrics. Some of this is recycled from another quilt. So this, not really my colours, but I had some quilt blocks made up that came from somewhere, and so I used some of that in here. What's on the back? Again, more of the Cath Kidston is on the back. I don't know. I'm trying to avoid unfolding the entire thing because it is waiting to be, there we go, that you can see that's the Cath Kidston IKEA print. Anyway, and then on the back of this, these strip piece blocks, they're super easy to sew, particularly if you're someone like me who doesn't like measuring and being precise. So you start with a square of fabric that's the size you want your finished block to be. I generally cut it half an inch bigger just to give me a bit of room. Then you sew your strips on top, and then you cut it to size. This backing fabric, at least some of this is an old sheet. Because what else am I going to use that for? Don't know. You're not going to see it on this. And that sort of thing is great for lining. So for example, if you're stuffing a pillow with walnut shells and you think, yeah, the cross-stitch fabric I'm using, maybe it's an Ada, maybe it's quite a loose weave, the walnut shells can get through this. We'll take an old sheet or an old pillowcase, something like that, and make a lining, and that will ensure that your stuffing doesn't escape. So you can make a patchwork quilt. You do not have to make an entire bed-size quilt if you're going to make a patchwork quilt. Right, okay, this, which I'm going to talk about because you may be wondering what on earth this is, and it's not going to fit in shot. I will try and take a photo and show you the whole thing, but I will just move it along. I can't see the screen at all, so I don't know how much of this you can see. Oh, I've just noticed a spider, dead spider. I'm going to remove from the back of that. There we go. I don't normally take it off the wall. So what is this? Well, it started with this piece, which is an old lace-edged table runner. It is stained. I can't remember if there were any holes in it, but it was certainly stained, and I didn't want to get rid of it because I just, you know, struggle to get rid of these kind of things. And this was a lockdown project. I remember looking at it thinking, I'd like to do... I've got 2 dogs in the house at the moment. And once one of them starts barking, so does the other one. We're just going to see. I think there might be a postman at the door, so I'm just going to pause until we've got a bit more peace in the house. So yeah, so I have the lace. I guess it was a table runner. I think it might have been something my mum gave me. It's not super ancient and vintage, but I quite liked it. And I thought, actually, what I'd quite like to do, because I'm never going to use it as a table runner. I don't have a house, and if I did, I wouldn't be a table runner sort of person. It's a good job I've got this down, because now I'm noticing all the cobwebs that I'm now going to remove from it. So I started with an idea of doing a very loose sort of patchwork covering, and I just took little squares of fabric, of which I have lots, and just stitching by hand in a cross over the fabric. And you can see on this one here, it's sort of, or maybe even I just did it in a line. Yeah, it looks like it. Until the whole thing was covered. And I'm like, I quite like it, but I'd quite like more texture on it. So then I went in with more pieces of colours and made this sort of, yeah, you can just about get an idea of the whole thing, sort of impressionist flowers in groups of reds and pinks. And some of these were fabrics that weren't in the right colour, so I dyed them just with paints. You can get dye-based paints, so you don't have to do actual dyeing. I mean, they're perfect for this, where you're not going to be putting stuff through the washing machine. Some of this is stuff that's got texture on it already. I don't know if you can see this little orange flower, and there's a red one there somewhere as well. Those are sort of pre-made from ribbon that I had lying around. There's all sorts of things in here. There's sequiny fabric, there's felt, there's little bits of lace, bits that I've hand woven over the years, anything with texture in it really. Bits of yarn. I don't know if you can see this pink, bright pink bit is just yarn, really fluffy. All sorts of things. So I just kept going over and over and over and adding in more layers until I decided I was done. And then I thought, well, how am I going to display that? And I've got one place in the house where it fits, which is over my back door. And I just repainted the walls. And I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a canvas and I'm going to paint it the same colour as the wall. So that will fade into the background. And what you'll really be looking at is the textile piece. It was such a fun and easy project to do because there were no rules. It was just, you know, add stuff on. If I don't like it, take it off, keep adding. And these were sort of 1-inch squares. Some of them a little bit bigger, some of them smaller than that. This is why I can't ever get rid of projects of fabric, because sometimes you just need an inch square. I mean, it's tiny. But it was super fun. And so I do think textile art, I mean, this has no function and it's not fabric, you know, unlike the painted ones, this is not ever going to be of a quality where it's a useful piece. It's display only. But do just see how easy it is to play with fabric. And this is all hand stitched. You could do something a little bit similar with machine stitching if you were that sort of person, but actually slow hand stitch. It was perfect. There's a bit here which was cut out of an old hanky. There's a little flower on the hanky, and so I cut that bit out. There's bits here that are selvage, you know, the bits that you normally don't use because they're slightly different from the rest of the fabric on the edges. Yeah. Isn't it fun? I feel like that's an upcycle. Right, I've got a couple of other things here to show you. Well, this one, so there are two things about this to show you. First is the entire box is an upcycle. This was a box with really lovely chocolates in it, and I liked the box so much. I think the box was the reason I bought the chocolates, although I don't really need a reason to buy chocolates. And so then I've upcycled it by adding a cross-stitch piece on the front, a little bit of fabric, and this bit of ribbon, which again, I've had that lying around my sewing room for years, and I have a feeling it came off something else, but I don't remember what. It might have been a blouse, or it might have been, I don't know, but, you know, keep the bits. Now, this was the fabric. Well, so in fact, there are two different sources of fabric on here. So these two fabrics that I use for this band, and then this extra here, these came from a book of samples for curtains or upholstery or something like that. I don't know how you normally get hold of those. I mean, you could certainly go if you've got a local curtain shop, upholstery shop, whatever, and say, do you have any old sample books that you don't need? I got this at a sort of group of textile thing, and I won a raffle, and it was that. And you don't get loads of each fabric, and some of it, mine has got stickers stuck to it with all the sort of information that are really quite difficult to get off. So you don't get loads, but it is absolutely beautiful. It's silk, the shiny bit, and you know, really lovely. And you get the same design in about 14 different colorways. And for finishing cross-stitch projects, it's beautiful. But let me show you what's on the back. This is a piece of fabric that my friend sent me that I was like, I have no idea what it is. I guess it's the kind of fabric that, you know, old-fashioned sofas or armchairs would have been covered in. And it may well be that that's where it came from, or that she'd got it to do a upholstery project that she never did or whatever. It wasn't a huge piece that she sent me, but it's such a nice luxurious kind of feel on the back of this little pillow, because it's this textured velvet, or, you know, fake velvet or Draylon or whatever it is. It's, yeah, I don't know, and to me it does have a slightly medieval feel to it, and it just seemed to fit with my cat's nails cushion. So yeah, upholstery shops, sample books, those kind of things, you kind of think, what am I going to do? I'm never going to make a garment out of this. There wouldn't have been anywhere near enough, even if I'd wanted to. But actually for this, it's really unusual, but really different and really lovely. Good. Another piece of textile art I'm going to show you is this. So I did this on a workshop. Again, a lot of very small pieces of fabric, but all sorts of things. This deer was on a napkin. The floral fabric was an upholstery weight fabric. There's a lot of this fabric that ended up being sort of painted and dyed and stamped and things. So the trees were on the same fabric. There's more of the floral fabric that I painted. There's lace on here that made these sort of trees. There's a lot of embroidery on here as well, and all sorts of things. Yeah, there's felt, and there's, yeah, all sorts of things. But anyway, if you have any interest in that sort of textile art, you will never ever be able to throw a bit of fabric away again. I just warn you now. The final thing I'm going to show you is my entry for this year's Staffordshire County Show in the category Upcycle a Denim Garment. So I didn't win a prize in this category. I will just let you know now. I did win prizes in other categories, but I didn't win in this one. And it was interesting to see the different kind of things people had done. A number of people had done the thing where you sort of recover the most pristine part of fabric and then just stitch with that as if it's new fabric. So there was a really nice patchwork cushion that someone had done that, you know, effectively they might as well have bought new denim to use for that, and they'd mixed it with other fabrics. There was a really lovely bag that I think might have won, where they, you know, cleverly used the waistband and the buckle and so on. And they were my favourite things, that you can see the origin of the piece. So I took my pair of jeans. I used to, I mean, I always keep jeans, because denim is such a great fabric to have around for crafting with. It's really sturdy and versatile. But when I went to do this, I'm like, oh, I don't seem to have any. Either I've decluttered them, or I think I probably had just used them all. So I went to the charity shop and bought the biggest pair of jeans I could find for £4. And these are what I made with it. So I made a luggage label. Obviously I had to add a little bit of vinyl in there. It's got a slot where you put your label in. It's sort of quilted on the back. I used, these are just sort of seams that I cut off. And, you know, they look a bit frayed, but they're not going to fall apart. And I did not do the rivet, but I recovered a bit with a rivet on it and glued it on there, and then just tied a knot in the end. And that, I think, would make a really nice distinctive luggage tag at the airport. This was the reason I'd cut off all the seams, was I made this bowl. So I'll put a link, because I did follow sort of a tutorial for this, although mine ended up, as usual, looking very different. So this one doesn't have any stitching in it. This is hot glue all the way, baby. I'm not a fan of hot glue, particularly on fabric. It's not particularly long lasting, but in some cases it really is what you need. So that's not true, there's no stitching. I made a quilted base with 2 layers of denim and a layer of soft and stable, which you can buy from Amazon in the UK. I have occasionally found something similar, the Bosal equivalent in Hobbycraft, but I couldn't when I went to look for this, so I ordered it from Amazon. And then these sort of spirals are mostly where I've cut the seams from down the length of the leg and made them into spiral. I didn't have quite enough seam length for that, so some of it is just the denim sort of folded to make a stiff bit and then glued. And then sort of held together with these, and then I took all the sort of, when I'd finished everything, all the sort of little extra bits of belt loops and you know, wherever there were seams that were joining, it's sort of interesting bits of the fabric, I guess, and I glued them in the base and in the little gaps here, and I put one just on the bottom. It's really quite a sturdy bowl. I mean, obviously it's not for food use, but it could be an ort catcher, it could be a keys bowl, you know, it's pretty thick, it's pretty sturdy, it's not immediately falling apart, and if it does, it's the hot glue fold. So that was fun. I made a little zippered pouch. I really enjoyed recovering the label from the jeans. Some of this is a bit that was left over from one of the pockets. I did add the zip, but the lining of the pouch was a pocket lining from the jeans. So I didn't add any fabric into any of this. I added sort of interfacing and stabilizer, and obviously the thread and that zip. Now, this was the main object I made. Remember, all of this from one pair of jeans, and at the end of this, I was quite tempted to put all the leftovers in the little pouch, because there really was very, very little and very, very tiny bits, but I didn't think the judge would quite understand that. So this is waistband. This at the back, belt loops became the hanging loops. The back of this was just kind of pieced with, you know, the main legs of the jeans, and then the front I wanted to use the pockets as far as I could. So this pocket is just taken off and stitched straight on, but I added in some lines of stitching so that it would be useful to put pens in. This was the little sort of inside the main pocket. It's quite cute. So then this was obviously the sort of main side pocket. This was obviously the bum pocket. This is the main side pocket. This is quite shallow, the way I've ended up with it on here, but it has got then this extra pocket inside. This is quite nice, this shallow pocket, for all sorts of things. Then this here, so this is not where the pocket is, this is where the pocket is, and that's why this one is shallow. And this has got the actual fly of the jeans. So you can see that's where the jeans is, and this is the fly of the jeans, and I've used that as the opening to a pocket that I then created here. So this is obviously a hanging organizer, and it's very sturdy, very rugged. You could put it in a garden shed, you could certainly use it in a sewing room. You can fit all sorts of bits and pieces in there. So yeah, so that's 4 useful, usable items, one of which I've now lost. But anyway, there's also the pouch from one pair of jeans. And like I say, all I added was the stabilizer and interfacing, sewing thread, a little bit of vinyl on here, and a zip on the pouch. So it's really fun. I really love transformation challenges on the Sewing Bee, are my favourite, and Reduce, Reuse, Recycle Week is one of my favourites as well, because you just start to look at the world differently, and it's really fun. And I don't mostly do it to save the planet, because I'm not very motivated by that. I know it's a good thing to do, and I know it's very important, and I'm glad people care about it a lot. If that were my main motivation, I don't think I would do this, because I'm lazy and bad at that sort of thing. I'm a very half-hearted recycler. I apologise now. But I love it. I just, for me, it's the satisfaction of seeing something change, actually. It's not even so much the saving of it, it's the changing of it that I really love, the transformation. The thing that was one thing and is now something else. Something that was just a pile of old fabric and is now a beautiful picture, or a bag, or a cushion, or the backing of a finished cross-stitch object, or whatever it is. I just love transformation. And it turns out that that is also very good for the planet. So win-win all round. So what I want to do for our community challenge, Ros Clark Craft community patron whatever challenge, I probably need to think of a snappy name for this. I am going to send anyone who wants a little package, send it anywhere in the world, but if I'm sending it overseas, I might be a little bit more cautious about what I put in it, that will include some fabric. It'll either be, I'm going to try and aim for it to all be something that has been used, but it will certainly be vintage, even if it's not, you know, it won't be new. It'll be some fabric. You might well get a piece of the Cath Kidston, but some other things as well. You'll get some smaller pieces of more speciality fabric, so the main big pieces I'll send will be cotton of a sort of quilting weight. They won't necessarily be quilting cotton, but they'll be that sort of weight. But you'll get some smaller pieces that are more specialist, that'll be different kind of colours and prints and so on. You'll get some trims. You'll certainly get some lace, because I've got quite a lot of antique lace. I say antique, please don't think special and valuable, really, really not. But you'll get some trim in there, some ribbons, some lace. You'll probably get some felt. You might get some cutout bits that I've been, you know, saving for years for nothing. So you'll get a package. Oh, I tell you, one of the things I will include, I bought a scrap bag a few years ago when I was thinking I might make pretty bras. I can't make bras. We're not going there. But I've got a lot of tie silk, by which I mean TIE, left over from making ties. Because ties have to be cut on the diagonal, and so inevitably the process means there are always going to be bits left. And they're quite good size scraps, but they're all sort of slightly odd shapes, so I'll include some of those. And your challenge is to use them. Now, you don't have to use them all in one thing, and you don't have to use all of them. I'm going to put a list in the forum of some suggestions of ways that you could use them. And the project that I'm doing the tutorial for, that hopefully again should come out soon, will be one way that you could use them. I'm going to be showing you how to make some bunting. And bunting would be a great way of using this. So you could use them just for something decorative like that. You could use them absolutely if you've got a cross-stitch project that you're thinking, how do I finish this? And, you know, use some of the scraps that I send you to do that. You could try your hand at some textile art. You know, it's entirely up to you. You could try and make something practical. You can make a little zippered pouch, for example. There will be enough if you wanted to do that. So yeah, oh, and I think I will probably try and include, yeah, I'll have a look through my sewing room and see what else I can include, but I'll probably include some, you know, maybe there'll be some buttons in there and that sort of thing as well. So it won't be a huge amount. I'm not trying to fill up your house with my leftovers, I promise, but it will be enough that you could use just that to make a project. Obviously you'll need thread, you'll need, you know, any interfacing or stuffing or whatever else you might want to use like that, and you can add as much as you like to it. And what we'll do, we'll set a date, and it'll probably be, let's say this very confidently now, because I want to give time if I'm going to send some overseas. Let's say the 7th of September. So if you are overseas and you want to do it, do please ask me for the pack as soon as possible so I can get it out to you. But I should be able to post things pretty easily within the next few days. Obviously, the later you wait, the less time you have to do the challenge. And there will be prizes, I think. I don't know what they will be yet, but there will certainly be suitable prizes for people both in the UK and overseas. It might well be like a gift certificate or something like that, Etsy gift certificate. I need to work that out. But I'm excited. I just think if you've never thought of doing this kind of thing before, just give it a go. Just have fun. Don't be afraid to use a lot of glue rather than stitching if that's what you want to do. Don't feel like you've got to have a particular outcome in mind. Just feel free to have a play. You know, the huge big piece I did with the canvas, I just started having play. I didn't really know what I was doing with that at all. And it just developed and developed. So you could try something like that. You could just try anything. There's a whole load of stuff on the internet that would give you inspiration. There's a whole load of YouTube channels that would give you inspiration. There are some in the Reduce, Reuse, Recycle blog post I already did, but I will, as I come across links for more ideas and things, I will put them in the forum chat. And please feel free, if you've got ideas, either you've got photos of pieces you've done in the past that have used fabrics in this kind of way, or you come across ideas and links and videos and so on, please do share those as well. I think it could be a really fun community project. It is open to all paid members. So if you know someone you think, yeah, they'd love to have a go at this, you can be on the $1 a month tier and do this. You could just buy a month or two for a friend if you thought they'd really enjoy it. You do not have to be at the higher levels. I will send these packs to anyone who asks on the forum. Right, I'm going to stop there and edit and upload this hopefully pretty soon, and then I'm going to be working on my bunting and hopefully get that uploaded maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Enjoy!